and all kinds of other deadbeats. And finally, the sun shone upon that place, and in came a white BMW. And as the BMW pulled into the parking lot, a young 8 years old, young professional who might have been a corporate lawyer or something. As he stepped out of the car, the boy's eyes locked on him, and he knew this was going to be my business partner. The man walked in, John, walked in and sat down. He picked up a magazine and started reading it. The cover of the magazine read, Men's Health. And on the cover of it was a man with six-pack abs. And the caption said, how to get abs in 6 weeks. Boy now thinking about, what's going to be my pitch? How am I going to talk to this guy? How do I do this? And then he remembered his lessons, what he had been taught when he was in the mentoring program. They said you have to do what is known as FORM, F-O-R-M. First be friendly, then talk about occupation, then talk about recreation, and then throw the hook, your message. So the boy said, okay, so I'm going to start by being small talk, have some small talks, being friendly with the individual, and then I'm going to talk about what he does, and then I'm going to talk about what kind of things he likes to do when he's having fun, what kind of recreational sports does he engage in, and then I'm going to ask him, are you looking to make some extra money? Because that's going to be my message. That's going to be the hook. Finally, the boy mustered up the courage and walked over to the aisle, now still thinking about it, still hesitant because he's never done this before. The boy's scared, his heart's beating 1,000 miles an hour. He's still thinking about it. He grabs a book from the shelf and starts to read it, only to divert himself. With the book in his hand, he looks over the book into the man's eyes, and the man's focused on his magazine. John looks back up at the boy, and the boy looks away. After a few seconds, the boy looks back at John, and John again finds him staring at him. At this point, the boy looks away again. And finally, he musters up the courage, puts the book away, and walks over to John, stands in front of him, and has forgotten everything he wanted to say. Finally, John looks up at the boy and says, "Hi." The boy looks at John and cannot remember a single thing he wanted to say. By now, he's just looking for one thing that he could say that would get him out of this embarrassment. And then he says, "Do you have abs?" At which point, the man, John, looks back at the boy and says, "Excuse me?" And by now, the boy has absolutely lost it. He just wants to find one way in which he can redeem himself. And he says, "Perhaps if I throw the hook, maybe I can redeem myself." And in the plea of saying, "Are you looking to make some extra money?" he actually says, "Are you looking?" John looks back at the boy and says, "I'm sorry, I'm not gay." The boy turns around and runs away as fast as he could, hoping that he would end in oblivion. He wanted to just get away from this situation and never, ever, ever do what he had just done ever again. He never wanted to network again because of the pain that he had just experienced, the embarrassment. Fast forward a year and a half later, the boy now lives in Richmond, Virginia. As a part of the mentoring program, he found an opportunity where he could work and continue to develop himself and become an entrepreneur. Living in Richmond, Virginia, was tough. He would work a manual labor job, he would do construction, hoping that perhaps tomorrow he would meet somebody that could make a difference. One fine afternoon after working his job, he decided to pull into a grocery store before going home. As he pulls into the parking lot of the grocery store, he steps out of the car, his old 1987 Toyota pickup truck, so beat up that you would think that it's prehistoric. As he stepped out of his vehicle and walked towards the grocery store, he saw a man, his child, and their dog walking in. He walked close to them. He ruffled the child's hair, looked at the man and smiled. The man looked back, and the boy said, "He's cute. How old is he?" The man looked back and said, "He's only 5, but trust me, he's a handful." They get into a conversation, and by the time they get to the door, the front door, the man asks the big question. The man asks, "So what do you do?" And the boy responds, "Well, as of now, I'm just working in construction. I've got a background in business. I've been part of a mentoring program, which has taught me entrepreneurial skills." The man looks back at the boy and says, "You seem to have a good head on your shoulders. You seem to have great communication skills. Would you be interested in IT?" The boy looks back and says, "Absolutely. I've always been fascinated by IT. I'd love to." At this point, the man says, "Why don't you drop by my office tomorrow and we can see what we can do." The boy shows up at the man's office in just a few days, and the man puts him through a 6-week crash course on how to become a business analyst, using the skills he already knew, multiplying them and making him better. The boy then went on to work at organizations like Walmart, Delta Airlines, and Premier Bank. If you haven't already guessed, you know that boy is me. And I tell you this story not to entertain you. I tell you this story for a very specific reason. I tell you this story because I want to make a point. And the point is that there's more to being prepared than you think. In an ideal circumstance, how do we look at preparedness? How do we look at success, for that matter?